Now, Wesley got chucked around like an empty tracksuit on
And he
Heatwave.
was defeated. He
He was
came out
defeated
ready to quit.
handily. He came out. He was about to quit. He was talking to the crowd. I will say, right? And I mean, the last time he made a speech like this, it was real because his back was fucked and he couldn't feel his legs and shit and he didn't know when he was coming back.
Yeah.
But he did a really good job of replicating that realness.
He captured it well, and it was like, at first I thought it was legit because of him having issues beforehand. I'm like, oh, is something going on? Did he hurt himself in that match?
But he's like stepping away, because the last thing I would want is for them to be a thing, oh, Wesley got really bummed about his loss and he walked out of NXT, quote unquote, and then he shows up on Raw the next week, because that's a bit lame. I mean,
not great.
I'm again, like Jordan Grace, Wesley deserves a main roster size platform as well, but that will come down the line. And then the music hit again.
Yeah, and especially with the story that they were
Rascals
telling.
came out, and the Rascals came out, and I was like, because let me tell you, right? To me, in one segment, they did so, like, we can talk about the layers in the bloodline, we can talk about the layers with the CM Punk Drew stuff. For me personally, and the way that I experience these three wrestlers, right?
Yeah.
The layers to this was so awesome, because first of all, Trey Miguel I saw first before we got MSK in NXT the first time. Yeah. I saw Trey Miguel at Destiny. Yes, check it out for Spaz Phoenix bucket list. It's fine.
There we go.
He was the inaugural Destiny Next Generation champion. He won it in New York, and then he was presented with the belt up here in Mississauga. And I seen the guy wrestle, and he told a story about some family stuff. And I shook his hand after the match. I'd never seen him before. I'm like, cool match. Congrats on the title. He was really cool to chat with for like half a second or so.
Yeah.
When MSK came in the first time, I was like, okay, he's still killing it in NXT. He was doing, I think he was doing X Division stuff at the time. The guy's phenomenal if you haven't seen him. But I was like, oh, come on, bring over the buddy, and like make the trio, right? And it didn't happen, right? And then, what did they call him? They called him Nash Carter, I think.
Yeah.
When he came in over the NXT, Zachary Wentz, he got canceled. I'm not going to argue with anybody about this. Like, cancel culture is a thing. If you don't think so, fuck off. So he went back with Trey Miguel in TNA and sort of like reformed the Rascals. And there's another fellow whose name I can never remember because I'm terrible. And they are now the trio known as the Rascals, right?
Yeah.
So when this happened, Wesley stayed here. I thought it was really cool because he's a tag team guy, got to stretch out and see if he could make it as a singles guy. Cool story to tell. Kind of a mini Jey Uso situation in a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
Made that North American Championship real exciting, real interesting. But when they came out, right, it was three things. It was our NXT guy about to quit. It was an NXT return of Zachary Wentz, and it was an NXT debut for Trey Miguel. Three layers, right?
All in one.
And they made reference to the trio and the tag team, right? So we got MSK is the two of them, Rascals is the three of them, right? So you got one guy that was about to leave NXT and didn't, one guy that just came back to NXT, and one guy that just debuted in NXT. We got an NXT tag team back together, and we got a TNA faction back together.
Nuts.
And they're going to go up against Gallus next week.
I know. They saw Gallus backstage, and they're going to have the 6-man, and I'm like, all right.
And tonight, like, I'm going to have to watch it later, but, like, probably happening right now as we're recording, over on TNA, Zachary Wentz is taking on Charlie Dempsey tonight.
Yeah.
Like, this is a big thing. Like, this, to have one faction, like, yeah, we had Jordan Grace come out in the NXTNA ring gear at Battleground. And I thought that was really cool, right? But this is a dual company group.
Yeah, this is a real Forbidden Door scenario.
This, like, the Rascals are an NXTNA faction.
Yes, they're combined between the three of them.
That's so fucking good. And, little tiny thing, we like to talk about production, right? We like to talk about the little production knickknacks and nitpick stuff all the time, right? It's cool enough. It's cool enough to see Jordan Grace when you see like the lower thirds when they come out just with their name, right? It's cool enough to see Jordan Grace in an NXT style of marker on the bottom, right? It's cool enough to see Joe Hendry. But when you see that they've made an NXT lower third with a TNA logo on it, it's such a minor thing, but it's very cool.
Absolutely.
It's very, very cool.
It's unprecedented. You haven't seen anything like this since what?
Because for it to be a production thing, somebody had to go to a production person and say, hey, do this. It's not just like they pulled up a graphic, like a normal NXT graphic, and just said, here, type in the name. No.
When ECW came up into WWF or
Yep.
Smoky Mountain, things
Yep.
like that. But that was kind of all you got of it. So
I just, like... It's weird because everybody's hyped about Joe Hendry, and they should be, right? Everybody's hyped about Jordan Grace, and they definitely should be. Jordan Grace is a phenom, if I can borrow a term, right? But the RASCALZ reunion thing is different because it's one group that represents two companies. And there's so many cool stories there. It's Zachary Wentz coming back after being fucking cancel cultured. It's Wes Lee, who was killing it as a singles guy, still reuniting with his old friends. It's Trey Miguel, who seems like the third wheel, but that's because it's his actual NXT debut next week.
yeah,
Like, that's wild. That is, like, that, with all the stuff that we're talking about, I could make an argument that the RASCALZ reunion is the biggest thing that happened this week. Just because of how different it is.
yeah.
And I mean, like, just genuinely seeing, like, three friends get together and be happy.
And just be, content.
Everything in wrestling is better when the people doing it are having a good time. Like, I
Absolutely.
will always, you can show me the worst match in the world. I always use the example of Miz and Maurice versus John Cena and Nikki Bella. Was it a great match? No. Would I probably even bother watching it again? No. But here's these two guys that are pretty good buddies, it seems like, and they got to have a match at WrestleMania with their significant others at the time.
Exactly.
Like, you can't hate that.
No.
You really can't. And you can't hate WWE for succeeding.